So, as I've been introduced, I'm actually the co-convener of the Dundee Green Party, and as such, probably one of the very few non-SNP in the room. But as you all know, the Scottish Green Party is very much behind the Yes campaign and very much in favour of independence. I'd like to go through the reasons why we are, because I do think they're slightly different to perhaps the other groupings that are within the Yes independence group. First of all, as a Green, this isn't about nationalism for us. And first of all, I'm going to apologise to the woman down there who kind of said, oh, nationalism isn't a dirty word. And she's right, it's not a dirty word. But you know, we're Greens, and when we look around and we look at climate change issues, the reality of the matter is they can only be addressed at an international level because they do affect, they don't stop at borders. The impacts of climate change doesn't stop at borders. And so to a certain extent, it seems an oxymoron to be voting yes and actually be an internationalist. But certainly I think underneath that climate change, there's the old adage of think globally and acting locally. And for us, I think this is what this is about. This is about pushing power down to communities, and it's about democracy in that sense rather than nationalism. It is about empowering communities to take control and have some sense of redress or some sense of control over the impacts of climate change upon their lives. And I think when we see what's been happening this winter, for example, or even a couple of years ago what happened in Stonehaven, and where you had communities completely devastated by the wettest winter, in this case, the wettest winter since like the 18th century. And you do get a sense of the way in which climate change is going to impact upon communities. So independence for us is about pushing power away from Westminster and into Holyrood, but for it not to rest there in a centralised way, but pushing it down further again to our local communities. So actually they will have the decision making, and more importantly, they will have the resources that they need to address the issues as it affects them. Now, that's not to say that we don't think that some services have to be regionalised. We recognise that things like health services have to be regionalised. But a lot of what we can do at a much closer level, closer to people. And when I think about what happened down south, and you hear communities saying, you know, we've been asking for flood barriers for years and nobody has been listening. It's at that point you think, actually, you know what, they should have had the money and they should have said flooding is going to be important to our future, we're going to need to do something about it, and they should have had the resources to do it, and not feel that they were speaking to some remote parliament somewhere that really wasn't interested in what they were saying. So this is not about nationalism, it's about democracy. Equally, it's not about identity. I mean, I'm Irish, my husband's Scottish, but his mother is Norwegian. And when my daughter was about 7, she'd go around saying, I'm 50% Irish and 25% Scottish, 25% Norwegian. You know, we're all mixed up. And I don't think the Scots are in any way superior to any other country or any other people. I don't think we're any better or any worse than people down south. What I do think, though, is that there's an increasing divergence between how we view the way we want our societies to be organised. And I think at the end of the day, for the Green Party, independence means bringing about a greener and a fairer society. And that's what's important to us today. I mean, what we reject, I suppose, is the bigism of London, and in particularly the bigism of London and the southeast of England, which has come to dominate UK politics and UK policies, I would argue. So, you know, you've got the 6 big energy companies, the 6 big banks, you know, you can go on with this list that actually doesn't serve any of our interests very well, as we're discovering, because they're actually too remote from us. And I think this is something that can't be tackled unless we look at bringing power much closer. For me, when I think about it, I think, you know, we're halfway to independence anyway. I genuinely believe when I look at things like health in Scotland, it is fully devolved. We can make our own policies, we can set our own budgets, and therefore we have a system whereby we've actually stuck to the principles of a public NHS. Down south it's very different. the march of privatisation continues, and I can guarantee you that in 10 years' time we'll have the big 6 health providers, and they'll be just as remote as the big 6 energy companies and the big 6 banks, none of whom have served our interests really, really well. I would say we're independent when it comes to education. Again, we set our own policies, we set our own budgets, and basically we do what we feel is right. Why we must continue and vote yes, I think, is because we don't have any control over welfare. So we end up with the bedroom tax. And I think, when you look at what the Scottish Parliament tried to do in a fairly unanimous way, when they said we need to offset the impact of this on people's lives, they actually had to go back to Westminster for them to approve the moving around of budgets to allow them to do something about the benefits tax on people's lives. We can't have that continuing. And I think the biggest thing of all is that we have very little control over the economy. And for me, this is something that, if nothing else, we have to really consider the benefits of it. When I think about the economy, I don't think about £200 more in my purse or £500 more. I think about it in the sense of, we need a more balanced economy. We cannot have an economy that is based on finances that actually enriches very few people, the people that work in it, which excludes most of us, and actually the people that, the international capital that I think actually benefits from it. But we've seen ourselves in the last 5 or 6 years, everything that was done, nothing was really done in the interest even of pensioners or people who have an interest in the economic system through the financial systems indirectly. I also think that we need a greener economy. We need a greener economy because of what's going on at this moment in time down south, because of the wettest winter on record since records begin. We need to be making the shift towards an economy that actually allows us both to shore up our communities against the impact of climate change and to begin to readdress it and somehow prevent it happening in the future. And I think we can only do that by having levers of power that allows us to produce a green economy. So for me, a positive vote is a yes vote. It basically says we know what we're about in Scotland, we know about the type of society we want to see, and we actually need the powers to actually bring that about. Thank you very much.